when a group of exiles are being taken by boat to Tsushima Island when they are caught in a savage storm. They pled for their bonds to be removed, but then take over the boat and commence fighting among themselves. Kuchii Jinzaburo saves Cho Minpuku, a fellow exile, and then fights to defend himself from other prisoners. He frees the pirate Anatakimaru, who raises the mast and helps sail the boat towards Tsushima Island. On arrival, the boatload of exiles and crew are warmly welcomed by Princess Teruhi, but then find they are asked to defend the island against the Makori, Mongols. Pressed by Jinzaburo, Teruhi tells them that she had asked the Dazaifu magistrate to send able-bodied prisoners to support her. That night, masked intruders attack and the prisoners free themselves. Kaitani Gantaro tries to fight them off, but the princess is captured. Anatakimaru and then Jinzaburo intervene, Jinzaburo killing all but one of the masked attackers and rescuing Teruhi. The next day, overlooking the slain, Teruhi is distraught at the carnage of war, but Jinzaburo tells her it is just a skirmish. She promises him a reward and asks for his aid. The next day, October 3rd of the 11th year of the Bunmei era, Kano reports that a fleet of Makori ships are heading for Tsushima Island. Teruhi invites Jinzaburo to a strategy conference, but is ejected by So Sukekuni after disagreeing with his assumption that the Mongols will pass Tsushima. He meets Shoni Kagasake, dressed as a monk, who asks him to help defend Tsushima for 7 days while he readies reinforcements, presenting him with the favorite sword of Minamoto no Yoshitsune. The next day, the Mongol fleet lands at Sasu Bay, and So Sukekuni rides overnight with his forces to meet them. So Sukekuni orders Jinzaburo to the rear to protect Teruhi and prepares to repel the invaders. After withstanding volleys of arrows from the advance party of Mongols, So Sukekuni's men push them back to the shore, where they find the Sasu villagers slaughtered. However, after the initial victory, the force of 200 soldiers and 80 horses are assaulted by explosives fired from the ships, and are overwhelmed by a larger force of 1,000 Goryeo soldiers, and So Sukekuni is killed. The surviving Tsushima soldiers retreat. They are confronted by Jinzaburo wearing Tsushima armor, who tells them to stop and fight the pursuing Goryeo soldiers. They are reluctant to follow in exile, but when Jinzaburo and some of the other exiles attack the pursuers, the Tsushima soldiers turn and follow them. Obasama Saburo, Shiriishi Kazuhisa, and Hitari support the attack, forcing the invaders to fall back and regroup. Jinzaburo insists on pursuing them. However, Abaru Yahiro urges caution and does not follow. Meanwhile, the exiles and supporting soldiers are surrounded by the more numerous invading forces, but led by Jinzaburo, they manage to break through to their headquarters, slaying their general and his men before returning with the heads of the slain So, Sukekuni, and Umajiro. Teruhi entreats the villagers of Sasu to join them in defending the capital, but Jinzaburo insists on a night raid on the invaders. Abaru Yahiro disagrees and returns to the capital. Using a mushi as a lookout, Jinzaburo prepares to lead them on a hit-and-run raid against the small invading force by moonlight. However, they are betrayed by 2 Sasu villagers, and when villager Jinsichi tries to kill Jinzaburo from behind, Teruhi distracts him and is cut by his sword. Jinzaburo kills Jinsichi and sends the wounded Teruhi back. Then, throwing caution to the wind, he leads the night attack on the now prepared Goryeo forces. Anatakimaru opens a path through their defenses, but the Goryeo commander, Kim Bang-jeong, and the Mongol vice-marshal Lu Fuang are unperturbed, suspecting they are under attack by only a small Tsushima force. Having caused enough fear and damage, Jinzaburo orders a retreat, even after hearing the cries of the Sasu village women and children held captive. Suddenly, a small Toiburai force assaults the Goryeo soldiers with arrows, giving Jinzaburo's men an opportunity to rescue the villagers. Before they retreat, the Toiburai commander, Nagamine Hengen, tells Jinzaburo they are acting under orders from Japan. Meanwhile, Lu Fuang wants to capture the fighter who slayed their general days earlier and decides to pursue Jinzaburo himself. He first encounters Anatakimaru, then is confronted by Jinzaburo, but is prevented from chasing them into the night by his men. The Mongol army marshal, Hinden, is advised by his priest that they should leave for Hakata in 7 days. Meanwhile, while returning to the capital, Jinzaburo supports Jinsichi's son Sasamaru from being bullied by the other Sasu survivors. Returning to the capital, Teruhi and Jinzaburo's group see the city the distance in flames after an attack by the Mongols. They find some survivors led by Abaru Yahiro, who says that other survivors are scattered throughout the hills. Before they can devise a plan, they are detected by a small group of Mongol scouts, and Teruhi fires arrows at them in frustration and anger. Amushi then sees a large force marching towards them, who are led by the Mongol Mingan commander Arian Edi. As the survivors head for shelter at Asobe, an old woman inspires some soldiers to stop and fight a rearguard action along with the exiles. On the narrow trail, Jinzaburo plans a strategic defense based on his fighting experience. Jinzaburo tells Abaru of his time in Kamakura with Nago Tokaiki of the Hojo clan, who told him that playing shogi and war were the same, and to never lose sight of the big picture. He also learned that if you lay down your sword, you can never win. Just then, the Mongols attack with explosives and charge through the blinding smoke. However, the defending forces led by Jinzaburo recover and decimate the attackers with arrows. Following this experience, Abaru finds newfound resolve and promises to support Jinzaburo. Mongol Mingan commander Arian Edi proposes that they use their Shintenrai. From a distance, Teruhi and Harari try to shoot him with their bows but fail. Jinzaburo and Abaru's group prepare to withdraw, but suddenly Chinese soldiers in the Mongol army shoot Abaru with a Shintenrai, killing him. Meanwhile, the Goryeo troops from Sasu begin to approach from the west. Jinzaburo hopes the two different armies will be confused when they meet in the fading light. When the Goryeo and Mongols meet, they start fighting over valuables left behind by the fleeing islanders, allowing the defenders to escape north. That night, Teruhi and Jinzaburo are approached by an old man who is with the Toiburai. Jinzaburo follows him through the night, and at dawn finds himself on the peak of Mount Shiratake and is introduced to Tokahito, known as the Emperor Antoku. In a flashback, Emperor Antoku gives the High General of the Genji forces, Minamoto no Kuro Yoshitune, a short sword. Back in the present, the Emperor recognizes the same sword carried by Jinzaburo. Teruhi then arrives and is welcomed by her great-grandfather, the Emperor, who gives her a message for the Magistrate Nagamine of the Toiburai to protect Sasu and the capital. Teruhi swears to protect the island, but her So clan are unhappy about relying on the Toiburai. When the survivors arrive at Asobe, they find the Toiburai women abalone divers have led a small seaborne advance party of Mongols into a trap, killing them all. They also discover that the invaders are composed of many different groups, and these are Jurchen. Teruhi gives Nagamine the message from the Emperor, and he agrees to help her, taking the So survivors to their castle, Kanatanoki. First built 600 years earlier, the So discover the castle is well fortified and supplied. However, Jinzaburo declares that it is too big to defend with the limited forces they have. The exile Obasuma Saburo tells fellow exile Shiraishi that they have no responsibility to defend Tsushima. Meanwhile, Nagamine tells Jinzaburo that the Toiburai will never abandon their castle fortress, even though they lack numbers to adequately defend it. After sparring with some Toiburai soldiers who challenge him, Jinzaburo promises Nagamine that he will help with their defense. Meanwhile, Obasuma reveals to Shiraishi that he has a pass, enabling him to safely contact the Mongols, saying he's happy to serve whoever rewards his effort. Shiraishi refuses to join him, but he kills Obasuma, whom he distrusts, and takes the pass himself. In the Mongol camp, Obasuma Arian Edi's commanders are frustrated of the disappearance of the Japanese islanders, but Arian Edi only agrees to pursue them if he has verified information about their location. Meanwhile, Shiraishi approaches the Mongols himself and offers information about a weakness in the castle fortification. He later returns to the castle with a dead boar to allay suspicions about his disappearance. Teruhi entreats her followers to support the Toiburai in their defense of Kanatanoki, although outnumbered almost 6-1. They concentrate most of the forces at the main south gate, while Shiraishi offers to defend the west wall at the rear. Meanwhile, Mongol commander Chukuru speeds to be the first to attack the defenders, but runs into a trap laid by Jinzaburo and a small Toiburai force. Chukuru's force is drawn to attack the heavily defended south gate, but are stopped by the experienced defenders. Commander Funbishi then arrives with orders to keep the defenders fully occupied while Commander Ochirobuto circles around to the west wall. Meanwhile, Shiraishi sends the Toiburai soldiers from the north gate to the south gate, allowing the Mongols to scale the wall and enter. However, Ochirobuto falls into a trap and is burned along with his men, giving the impression that the citadel is ablaze. While the Mongols hesitate, Jinzaburo leads a cavalry charge into their midst, almost killing Arian Edi, who decides to withdraw and focus on their main objective, the conquest of Japan. When the breach at the west wall is discovered, Jinzaburo goes to investigate and finds the traitor Shiraishi waiting for him. Jinzaburo confronts Shiraishi, who says he only cares about recovering his clan and his lands. Jinzaburo defeats him and Teruhi takes his head. That night, Teruhi kisses Jinzaburo while he is asleep, conflicted about his coarse manner and his bravery. Meanwhile, Cho Minpuku has prepared a small boat loaded with supplies to abandon the island, but only Onitakamaru agrees to leave with him. In the Toiburai fortress, while seeking an omen for the future, the elder dies, but Nagamine holds firm, maintaining morale. The Mongol army vice-marshal Kochakyu prepares to attack the fortress and uses flaming torches to show the scale of his army. At Hakata on Kyushu, Keigazuki, the son of the Shoni clan patriarch, Shoni Tsukiyoshi, prepares to send reinforcements to Tsushima, but his father stops him, preferring instead to save his forces for after the invasion to fight against the other Kyushu clans. Back on Tsushima, what initially appears to be reinforcements sailing towards the defenders turns out to be a fleet of Mongol ships. Even when asked why he fights for Tsushima Island, Jinzaburo simply answers that there is something worth fighting for. The full force of the Mongol army assaults the main south gate of the fortress defended by Nagamine and the Toiburai. The Mongols have only until sundown to win the battle before they must set sail for the invasion of the Japanese mainland. Nagamine sends Jinzaburo to reinforce the east wall, where Teruhi and a small group are under attack. Soon, the Mongols breach the south gate and kill Tatsu and Nagamine and the rest of the defenders. With the walls breached, Jinzaburo advises the survivors to retreat and surrender the fortress. He is joined by a small group of Tsushima soldiers and Onitakamaru, who return to the island. The defenders fight a rearguard action, with Dune and Hitari losing their lives, but allowing at least Teruhi and some others to retreat to the ocean cliffs. However, an explosive fired by the Mongols sends Jinzaburo falling into the water far below. With Jinzaburo gone, the remaining Tsushima forces fight a losing battle against the advancing Mongol army. However, Sana takes Teruhi and leads a small group into the forest towards a hidden cave. Imushi causes a distraction by exploding a bomb in the Mongol camp, but is killed as he tries to escape. The group are later found by the Mongols, who kill Kaitani Gontaro and wipe out the remaining Tsushima forces. With the situation looking hopeless, Kano tearfully chokes Teruhi to kill her before the Mongols find her, but then acts as a decoy and is captured. As Jinzaburo sinks deeper into the water, he recalls the Kuchii household 4 years earlier when his daughter defied him to protect a tree, and he regains consciousness, rising to the surface. He reaches the scene of the final battle of the Tsushima forces and finds only the survivor is a young boy whose father he killed earlier. Taking his sword, Jinzaburo recklessly attacks the remaining Mongol forces and comes up against the commander Ryu Fukuko. After a vicious battle, Jinzaburo disarms the Mongol leader and leaves untouched by the Mongols. As the Mongols prepare to depart and invade Kyushu, Teruhi emerges from where Kano hid her to find Jinzaburo standing alone. Slowly, the surviving villagers and children emerge from the forest, and Teruhi declares that Tsushima is not finished yet.